All right, so Ms. Moore, we're going to follow up on our second walkthrough conference based on what I observed. We talked about a week ago when we met on the 5th, and now we are discussing the walkthrough from yesterday on the 11th, the follow-up. So basically, again, I want to start off with asking, what do you think went well during your walkthrough observation?
I think it pretty much went really well. I took your advice, and in my reading comprehension center, I added some different leveled books. And so when they go over, they know what level they are. And then from that, they have to complete a little worksheet about what they read, about some characters they found in the story, and what the setting is. And here are some words that I am unfamiliar with, or here are some words I know. And then in my writing center, I have the children self-assessing. So when they write something, then they have to look and see, okay, do I have capitalization? Do I have punctuation? We're covering nouns right now. So if they can find nouns, I have to highlight them yellow with a yellow highlighter. So I kind of try to make them with a little more rigor. So definitely that I have a piece of evidence for every center. So everything they do, I can look and make sure they did it when they're done.
So you had like a checking system.
Yes.
So yeah, okay. So and that was one of the things we talked about before, where some activities you couldn't really tell if they, did it or not by you being with a small group. Like for instance, the number center last time where they had the number and then they just build the number. Well, there's no way to tell, if they build. That's why I said creating something so where they actually apply it, so where you can see what they did. So, but we'll go into what the 16 things I have. And by the way, you got proficient on everything this time. And so I'll go through and basically compare to last time. I think you got 1, 2 needs developments, and the rest were proficient. But this time, obviously, those areas were fixed. And last time was math. This time was reading. I just want to see a different environment and to see if the rigor was there. And then again, I will, of course, come back in the future and look at your math. But for this one, your essential question was posted, and it aligned with your learning target. So that was proficient, and that was teacher keys 1, 3, and 10. The standard or your learning target was posted and clearly communicated to your students. And since you were in small group, you did share your target with your small group students, and they were able to respond in their journal. At the end of the small group lesson, they responded answering their learning target. So that was also proficient for teacher keys 1, 2, 3, and 10. Teacher communicated and presented material clearly, and you explained directions and the concepts and the lessons to students in a sequential order. And I just gave you proficient there because you reinforced your learning goals throughout the lesson, and you built upon the students' prior knowledge. So even though you all were going on character traits, you constantly reminded them, what characters were and what settings were. So, and then you also started with your opening, let them know what they'd be learning. You went over your vocabulary, and then you went into the lesson. So your lesson built upon each other. Using a variety of research-based instructional strategies and resources. Teacher keys 3. I said that you did well with that because you brought in a thinking map, and we're really big on thinking maps. So you used a bubble map to have your students describe the character traits from a particular character in the story. And I also like the fact that you didn't tell them which character from the story they had to do. They chose their own character. So if one student I think one student wanted to do the frog in the story, and the other student, may have chosen to do the princess. So they all didn't have to, you didn't just say, okay, everyone look at the frog and tell me what character traits the frog had. They were able to choose their own character. So I think that was also a higher order thinking because they couldn't look at their neighbor's paper or receive assistance. They really had to know their character for themselves, and then they also referred back to the text a lot to find those character traits. I saw you several times telling them to, go back and look, and they had to verify, why that character trait aligned. So if they said the frog was mean, they had to tell you why. So that was proficient. The content-specific vocabulary was developed in context, and I said that was proficient because you use the academic vocabulary, and students received explicit instruction on the words. So you didn't just say, I think one of the words was devour, and when the frog devoured something, and so you just didn't, say it means to, eat. You really explained, and you gave examples and non-examples. So that was, I thought that was proficient. I think I skipped one. Yes, engage. Number 5, students are actively engaged in the lesson. Teacher keys 3 and 8. I said that you kept the students' attention because you were pulling the sticks, and I really liked that because you pulled sticks from the cup, and they had to pay attention because they didn't know who would be called on next. So they never knew when it was going to be their turn. They, had to stay attentive to receive the. You never know when their popsicle stick with their name would be pulled. And also that you kept the stickers going. You continue to give them stickers for their responses and for participating and being actively engaged. The content is connected to past or future learning, and last time I didn't see that, but this time I was able to see that, and that relates to Teacher Key Standard 1 and 3. And I was able to see that this time because you made connections to previous stories and talked about those character traits as it related to the current story that you were reading during small group. Teachers checking for understanding by monitoring and assessing students throughout instruction. I put that, again, like we just discussed, you were monitoring and checking because you also made them verify the trait for key details. They had to look for those key details in the story. And then you did formative assessment throughout. You were asking several questions, checking for understanding, seeing who knew different things from the story when you asked those comprehension questions throughout. Then you made connections to higher order thinking. I said the activity that you did with the bubble map was higher order because they had to verify with the key details, and they also, like I said, got to choose their own character. You didn't say specifically which one they needed to write on. Number 10, the teacher encourages student productivity and assigns meaningful work assignments. And again, that just goes back to the one I just said. I think the bubble map was an excellent activity for the character traits, for describing those characters. And like I said, I really love the way you let them, choose, and by them being so young, that was, excellent because they're now getting to see that I don't always have to get, directions from the teacher. They knew that they were choosing a character, and so they were independently working on their own bubble map without. And of course, you've all done one in class before. I see you had an example up. So they knew what it looked like, but they still had to do it independently and do their own character. Number 11, the instruction is differentiated through content, process, or product. And it was meeting the students' readiness level, their learning profiles, or interests. And that relates to Teacher Keys 4. And of course, with your reading comprehension center, as I was walking around looking at the activities, that was one that was differentiated because the books, I noticed when you switched to your second group, they knew to pick up another book with the yellow dot because they knew that was their level, and that was the one that they should be reading. So you differentiated through the center. Some students were on the phonics on iRead at the computer. So it was differentiated, and of course this group that you had with you still needed work on character traits, so you were explicitly teaching and helping them understand and describe character traits using key details from the story. So all of your activities were based on student needs. And of course they were rigorous, so that was something that we were working on before. And you had their self-assessment in there, you had it labeled, it was higher order thinking. Some of the learning was put on the student, so they were able to hold themselves accountable, like facilitate their own learning. And I saw that through several of the centers. They were able to work without you. Most students weren't coming up for questions. They knew exactly what to do. So that was wonderful. Technology, of course, was integrated because students were using the computer to access iRead. 13, you interacted professionally with your students, showed enthusiasm. And of course, I said their responses were welcome. Again, like before, you constantly rewarded them with a sticker for their correct responses and praise, of course. So anytime they get praise, they feel comfortable with continuing to answer questions. And if they don't get it correct, you always let them know. You'll come back to them and give them another chance. And that's how I noticed too, you do your leveling of questions. So if you ask a student sort of a harder question, you may come back and ask them something easier to build their confidence back up. And I noticed that with Marissa, you asked her a question, she wasn't able to answer it, so you came back with a simple one, and she got it, and then her little smile was just so cute because she was so excited she got it correct. So that was a good strategy. Your classroom management, conducive to learning. Again, you had your marbles going. You managed your students with the stickers. You continue to have your checklist monitoring each group, and so they knew based on those checks that they received that there would be a consequence. So the behavior was at a minimum, and they weren't coming up to you. You maximize your instructional time, teacher keys, number 8, with the bell. And again, they rotated just like they do in math, and everyone rotated smoothly and quietly. And last time, student work was not displayed, but you have student work displayed at this time, and it has commentary. So that's for standard 3 and 8. So overall, I know we've worked together throughout the year. One of the things we worked on first is classroom management, and all of the strategies that I shared, you have implemented, and it's been working. And now we moved on to rigor, and you are developing rigorous centers in reading. So now we want to work on that again still for math, making sure they're rigorous. I saw you do it for reading, have not saw it yet for math, but when I return, there's something. Like I said, I just pop in during different times of the day, so I'm not sure which one I will come, because I like to see different subjects. So next, but I do like to see small group, and small group takes place in reading and math. So I'll continue to pop in just to see if your centers are rigorous. But for reading, they were, and I would like to see if they are for math. So I'll be back in again. But you did have rigorous centers this time for reading, and that was one of our goals that we're working towards. And so for math, how do you think it's going with your math centers being rigorous?
I think it's going good. I kind of, when I did reading, I kind of had the same idea for math.
Okay.
So I kind of tailored it back to it, like the same with the work. So I have to have something for them to transfer on to. I did that with math as well.
Okay.
And I also took your suggestion with the number lines, and so I changed that up a little bit so they could move past that.
Alrighty then. Well, thank you for your time. Do you have any questions, concerns, or comments? Have any questions about your walkthrough observation?
No.
No? All right, well, I will leave these with you.
Okay.
And I have my copy.
Thank you.
Thank you. And anytime, I guess the next time we'll conference after the next time I come in for a walkthrough, and we'll schedule it. Normally I write it on there, the date and time.
Okay.
Alrighty.